Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Empowered to Live, where where faith meets purpose and purpose fuels freedom. I am your host, Andrea Butler, and we are in a series, as you know, on embracing change. And we've been talking about first how to navigate life transitions in week one. Last week, we talked about that physical reset, and I don't know if you guys joining me in, starting your physical reset. As many of you all know, I have been down physically for past several months. Actually, we started in December. Thought I was doing better, and then in March we had another roadblock, and just kind of took me down. And so we finally kind of getting into feeling better, walking better. So I don't need my cane as much as I was doing in the past. Legs are a little bit more stable. So I'm thankful for that. And so we started going back so I started going to the gym. So we recently moved. So it's been 2 weeks now. And the place that we moved to here in Mexico actually has a gym on site, which I'm super excited about. And so we have been tackling going to the gym, um, doing 3 days a week. And so I'm just super excited about the fact that I'm able to get back into doing that physical routine. I was used to walking and, lifting weights and doing all those different things. And just past almost a year now, almost, just really had not been feeling well and doing well. And so now that we're back into that routine. So I'm hoping that you all took the challenge from last week to pick a healthy routine. Do something that fuels your body. Whether it was like healthy, adding more vegetables to your meals, walking, increasing your walk, stretching, any of those things. And so part of a physical reset includes self care. Self care is all part of that. So we tackled about that physical reset, but we're going to talk about overall self care and what self care is. And a lot of times when we get overwhelmed, when things are going on, we'll figure, I'm tired. I'm just going to keep pushing through, or I'll pray later, or I'll do this later, or I'll do that later. And the truth is, we never get back to taking care of ourselves because we will push ourselves because something else or someone else is usually more important than ourselves. And self-care is not being selfish, it's stewardship. Bible says that, that in First Corinthians, that our bodies are the temples of the Holy Spirit. And God entrusted us with this body. We only have one. We only have this body. We don't get another one. And so we need to take care of the body that we have. And that's important, if we want to be able to do things later in life, if we just want to do things now, it's important for us to be able to take care of ourselves, take care of our bodies, and make sure that we are doing what we need to do so that we can have this body for longevity. There's a saying, that commercial that says, "A body in motion stays in motion." So we want to be in motion. We want to stay in motion. We want to keep our joints lubricated. We want our heart functioning. We want our mind, our working properly as we get older. And so part of that is we got to take care of ourselves now. So whether you are 15 or you're 50 or 60 or whatever your age is, you can still find time to take care of yourself. And it's not about the big things. And I say this all the time. It's not about big changes that we need to make. It's the small things that we need to do in order to build that consistency, to get ourselves in a routine. So we're talking about routines, and there are so many apps now that can help you with setting up a routine for yourselves. My kids use one, and it chimes out and it tells them, it was just like, "Hey, daughter, It's time for you to do this. It's time for you to start winding down. Even my Fitbit that says, hey, start winding down. It's time to get ready for bed. And so there are so many things. The Android app has modes on it where it can help you, like, you know, shut down your screen time, and it will remind you, you can have an alarm and do different things. So there's so many things that we don't have to rely on ourselves to get in a self-care routine. But the thing is, though, if you're using one of these apps and it says, hey, it's time for you to do this, you need to stop and do this and not go, oh, I do that later, or, pushing snooze like we do on our phone sometimes, when our alarm goes off and we're like, snooze, 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 until we find ourselves rushing around because now we've snoozed too long. And now, we find ourselves rushing and we no longer have the cushion. I build cushions into my time. Like for me, um, if I need to be somewhere at 2 o'clock, I set my alarm that I need to leave at 1, or, instead of, if I know I need to leave at 2 o'clock, I'm like, my leaving time is 1 o'clock, because this way I have that cushion in case something happens. I've built cushion into my time so that I'll have that kind of buffer so that I'm not stressed out. And that's part of being a self care as well. If you have to know yourself, you have to know um, what you can do and what you're capable of. So if you know that you are somebody that's always running late, you know, set a time, an hour and a half before the time you actually have to be somewhere, and make that be like leaving time for in your mind. And then once you set yourself up, that my leaving time is 1 o'clock versus my leaving time is at 2, my appointment is at 2:30. And so I have that cushion of, I have time to get where I need to go. And stress is a killer. It raises your blood pressures, get cortisol build up, all these different things happening. So you want to make sure that you're having that time, and that having that flexibility in your schedule, so you get there and you can, have that woosah moment, and you're not being so stressed out. So that's kind of some of the things that I do that helps me, because I know me, and so I have to do that. I have alarms. My oldest daughter, I was like, how many alarms do you have? She has alarms for everything. She was like, it's time to eat dinner, and her phone goes off, and she was like, that's my dinner alarm. This is this alarm. This is my go to bed alarm. This is, I know I'm supposed to do this alarm. And so and that's for her. That's what she does to keep herself. She has a million alarms, and was like, what is this alarm for now? It's like in the middle of the day, just like, oh, I have to work on this project I have to work on. So I set an alarm to remind me that I needed to go do it. So I need to go ahead and do that now. And so for her, that's important to have alarms. My youngest daughter, she created a CEO schedule type thing that she has, and I was like, share it with me. I need this, And so it's like when she needs to clear her inbox, and she has this step of routines that she does on a regular basis, and then she has that flexibility for client work where she's filling in when she has appointments and meetings with her clients and stuff like that. But then she has the routine of things that she needs to do. She's got the routine in there: exercise at this time, work stops at this time. I need to eat lunch at this time. And so she has that schedule, and it sends her a notification. It says a reminder for her. Again, that organization, building routine is so important. And then once it becomes a habit, because you've done it over and over again, then it becomes a habit for you to be able to do that, like going to bed at the same time every night if possible. I know that sometimes there are things that happen and we don't necessarily can go to bed at the same time every night, but it's important that we start that routine. Like I said, my Fitbit will, it will send me a message notification. It beeps on my watch, my phone, a notification pops up, and it was just like, it's time to start winding down. So now I know I need to get myself together. So if I'm downstairs, I need to work my way upstairs, and make sure I take my shower, do all these things, get ready for bed, put my music on, do whatever, read, whatever I need to do to start getting myself to that place where I'm starting to relax and I can now begin that getting to bed phase. And so that routine of doing that is the important part for all of us. And so we have to create space for that. And sometimes we have to, redefine what self care is. And self care is not necessarily about, bubble baths and spa days. And those are important because I love those. Now, that's what bubble baths. I'm not really a bubble bath person, but I love a spa. Go get a massage, um, all those different things. Those are things that are important for a part of the self care, but it's not all of self care. That's just not all of it. That's just a portion of what it is for us to do. So it's about, again, building the routines in that will help you to thrive. And so setting up a structure, again, having that, that you're going to bed at this time, wake up time is this time, for if you're working, what time you have to be at work, you need breakfast, making, prepping stuff the night before, laying out your clothes that you want to wear, if you're not sure what you're going to wear, if you don't wear a uniform, pick out 2 outfits and lay them out. And in the morning, say, okay, I'm going to wear this one, because kind of give yourself even something you can mix and match and coordinate. And maybe you want the bottoms for this one, but you like the top for this one, but you already have an idea of stuff that's already laid out. If you're going to go to the gym, lay out your gym clothes. If you're going to go walking in the morning, lay out your walking clothes, get your shoes, get your water bottle in the fridge, whatever you need to do so that you're eliminating things that you would hinder you. Like when I was working, going into the office, even working from home, when we had work from home days, I would still set myself up, prepare. I would act as if I'm going into the office. When I get up in the morning, get up, shower, put on clothes as if I was leaving my house, because you never know. And I've had situations where I was like, okay, I'm already dressed, where I had to, quickly go into the office. So all I had to do was put shoes on, and head in. I would comb my hair, do all the things as if I was going into office, regardless of whether anybody saw me or not, I was having a meeting or not. I was prepared to leave the house if necessary. And so those are kind of things. And so I had my clothes laid out, I had a breakfast idea. If I didn't already make my breakfast the night before, started my breakfast the night before, I make sure that I had, what I was going to eat for lunch. I'd had those lean cuisine dinners and stuff like that stacked in my freezer. So all I had to do was warm up and eat, or it's bag salads or whatever you needed to do, or whatever I cooked the night before. We had leftovers, then that would be my lunch. And so all these different things that and then you get everything prepared, put them in the fridge, get a lunch bag, put it in there. If you're a going out to eat person, plan where you're going, making sure you have all of these routine structures help you to thrive. And again, not bring in, chaos to your day, because chaos, when you start out in chaos, your whole day just seems to just fall apart. And so it's important for you to have those. And so building those routines. So think about, something that you can do each day. We've talked about in the past about, setting that devotional time in the morning, starting your day off with prayer. I like the Bible app because it already gives you the scripture. It gives you prayer prompts. It gives you all those different things that you can go through, and it gives you the time for each one of those and how long it should take. And so you could do that. And like for me, getting up in the morning, especially when I was working, and even now, you have to go to the bathroom first thing. I take my phone, do my devotional in the bathroom. And sometimes I've met God there, just the scripture just speaks to me, and we're just in time, just praying, praising God. I'll meet you wherever you are, start wherever you are, and then build from those. So those anchors of setting that time up. So again, building. So it's not about, you may not have to overhaul your life, but what is one small thing that you can do to improve and get that self-care in to your life? So, maybe it's walking 15 minutes, maybe it's walking 5 minutes, maybe it's walking up the street and back. Maybe that's all you can do and that's all you can fit into your day. You're moving. And so that's the important thing. So maybe you can't do 15 minutes, but you can do 5, or you can do, you can do 10, whatever it is you can do. Maybe it's cooking a meal at home. Start in those healthy routines. We're talking about that physical reset last time. It's about consistency. That's the thing, those small steps that build on each other, that takes you into a better place of self-care. So this is not about beating yourself up and about I can't do this and I can't do that. But what is one small thing that you can do? All of us have 24 hours. We all have the same amount of time. So what is one thing that you can do, that you can improve your life? Like I said, you only have this one body. It's the only one you have. You can't, there's nothing, you don't get a new one. There's no refurb, we can refurbish, but if we, not taking care of ourselves the way we should have, we can always, improve and get ourselves back into a better place, and starting that way. So it's about small steps, consistent small steps, over time. If you need somebody, find an accountability partner. I talked about those meetup groups. You can search meetups and go to, there's a meetup app. You can look for people who are doing things, people who are walking, like even here, there's some walking groups that we have here in Mexico, where we live. People who are doing Tai Chi and yoga and all these different things. There are people, there's a ladies brunch where, we're meeting and people go out and we have the community type of fellowship. There's like arts, there's, groups, and all of these things fuel your spirit, fuels your body. That's that sense of connection. So find that for you. What is that for you? Like I said, it's not about the major big things that we do. It's about the little things that we can do each day, those small steps. And we're not talking about just the physical, so let's not forget about our spiritual self. I think last week I shared the scripture that, Paul says that I would above all things that you prosper. That's financial. We're talking about next week. We're talking about, embracing the change or financial reset, that you prosper, that you be in health. We talk about that physical and that self-care, even as your soul prospers. So, he talks about that holistic person, so all the things, so that our prosperity is our physical prosperity, our spiritual prosperity, our mental prosperity. So our mental health is important. So he said, above all things, I want you to prosper and be in good health, even as your soul is prospering. So he's like, take care of your body again, because it's important. Because, like David says, I can't praise you from the tomb. So I need to be able to take care of my body so that I can praise you while I still have life. We have our role model. Jesus did that. Jesus pulled away. He was always withdrawing to go pray. He'll slip away from the crowds and go off by himself. And disciples was like, where did he go? He would tell them, go ahead without me. And, and he would stay behind because he needs that. And if he needed to, refuel, reset himself after he gave out and he was pouring out, we need the same thing as well. We need to refuel ourselves. We need to be refreshed ourselves. We need that prayer. We need the silence. So how can we take care of ourselves? One thing she talks about is creating a self-care menu. And I've done that for you. So I created a mini guide called Finding Me Time in Your Busy Day. So how to, the steps, and it has the different areas of your life where you can create a routine. So I give examples, but it's up to you. Like I said, what is it that you're able to do for yourself that will help you to be able to, take care of yourself, to have that self-care. And self-care, again, is not selfish. It's about stewardship. You're taking care of the body God entrusted you with. Um, so set realistic goals. Like I said, it's not about, okay, I'm going to walk for 30 minutes when you're like, I don't even know, I can even find 5 minutes. Don't set yourself up to fail. So set the small goals that you can do. Use habit stacking. And this was something that I found out in my research about habit stacking. And I was like, oh, I do this. I do. I was like, I didn't know I was habit stacking. I didn't know what it was called. But it was attaching a healthy habit to something that you're already doing. So again, they talk about pray while you're making your coffee, or while you're getting dressed. You can sing and worship. God doesn't care. All He wants is your time, and you're giving Him that, until you can build that space in. So we're not getting legalistic. God doesn't care as long as we're spending time with Him, and it's like multitasking your relationship. When you're on your phone and you're talking to somebody, the same thing, but still there are going to be times and moments where you just need to pull away and have that without distractions. And we need those times to strengthen our faith and strengthen us for the day and fuel our day. Where sometimes we need those moments when we know we're having something major coming up, or whatever. We're just feeling out of sorts. That tells us that tells me, and I'm telling you too, that you may be feeling drained and you need to have that time where you just need to pull away and it's like, God, it's me and you, do a Mary and sit at the feet of Jesus. Sometimes we need that. We can't always be Martha all the time, rushing around, and feeling overwhelmed. Sometimes we need those times, those moments. And so self-care is all about. It's not about being a Martha where you're just rushing, rushing, rushing. You got to take care of this, you got the kids to take care of, you got to do this, you got to do that, you got to do, and never ever sit and find that time to kind of refuel yourself. I've always say this, that you cannot pour out water from an empty cup. So if you don't have anything on the inside of you, you cannot give it to anyone else. And that's when you feel that frustration. That's when bitterness comes in. You find yourself angry all the time. You snappy, 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 and all these things. It because of the fact that you're drained. You have dried out, and you need to be refreshed. And this is, it's not about condemnation. It's stating a fact. When you get to that place, and I've been there, where I find myself, and I'm like, okay, you have not sat down at the feet of Jesus. He needs you to sit. You just need to pull away. Get in the car and just go for a ride and sit. Sit in the park, sit in nature, just go out by yourself. I had a friend, she would go sit. She's like, water for her was the thing. So, she would find some body of water and just kind of sit and just kind of, take that in, take in nature, just kind of refresh herself. And nature for her and water was her thing, what she needed to do, and what she needed to feel that refreshing was to get beside some water. So again, like I said, you can do that habit stacking, pray while you're making your coffee, stretch while you're brushing your teeth. That's something that I do. Now, while I'm brushing my teeth, I'm doing like leg lifts, I'm doing calf raises, whenever I needed to do, to make sure that I'm building that in to my time. I keep water beside my bed, get up in the morning, get some water in. So you're hydrating yourself first thing as you wake up in the morning, get that water in you. Again, what do you have to do? What is something small that you can do to kind of build in those healthy self-care routines that you're taking care of yourself? And so challenge for the week. You knew that was coming. The challenge is coming. So pick one small self-care practice and commit to it. So what is that one small thing that you can do starting today? You It's still early. You got to brush your teeth. Maybe start stretching. Start doing that stretching routine while you're brushing your teeth. While you're drying yourself off with a towel. Use it to do some arm exercises. So again, you're building it in. You already have to dry yourself off, so might as well just go ahead and do some, do some muscle work while you're at it. Stretch those ankles. Do what you need to do. Sing and praise God in the shower. So you're getting your devotional time and pray in the shower. Again, you're stacking. God just wants your time. You need that moment, and music is one of those things that refreshes and refuels the spirit and helps you to grow and to um, feel fulfilled. I like music. I put have my phone and just play music in here, and just to have that time, that we all need again to fuel ourselves. You know, dance while you're cooking. You know, while you're sweeping. Put the music on, and make it part of your routine. Dance around the house while so many different things that we can do to build. All of this is about movement. It's about building joy into our lives, and what can we do? Again, the small things. So pick one small thing. That's your challenge, to take care of yourself and to practice self-care, and to try to make that a routine. Like I said, I have that free guide. Thought it was on my link tree. I need to get that out on my link tree for you guys. And it's called Finding Me Time in Your Busy Day. So how can we build some time and some routines into our day that will help us to steward this body that we've been trusted in? So next week we'll wrap up. Talking about financial fresh start. We had a whole money series earlier. I think it was back in April. We had a whole money series, and maybe you missed that. So we're going to be talking a little bit more about that, how to reset your money mindset. Again, embracing change, and so we want to make sure that we are living our best life. So our program is called Empower to Live. And so I'm giving you the tools to empower you to live the life that God has called you to do, and how to live godly in this life. God has given us everything that we need. And so we have it within ourselves. You just need somebody to encourage you and find the ways how to pull that out of you, to remind you of what you have and who you are, and just encourage you in your walk in this life. And so I thank you all again for joining me for another episode of Empowered to Live. I want to see you next week. So keep walking in faith and living in freedom, and pursuing fulfillment, because that's who we are called to be. You all have a wonderful night. Bye.